The British royal family has always been an object of fascination, and of course, they've had a lot of scandals too. However, there are some royal family secrets that you might not have heard about. Here is the dark truth of the royal family. Royals of most countries do not get surnames. Instead, they take on the name of their house, like King Henry of the House of Tudor. While modern historians tend to equate a house name with someone's surname, that was not actually how royals were named, until King George V made a proclamation in 1917 to adopt the name Windsor. What many people may not know is that the current British monarchy isn't really British at all. Rather, they're predominantly German. When World War I broke out, as a way to weather the anti-German mentality of the British population, King George V decided to change the family's name to Windsor, named after Windsor Castle. The name Windsor continues to be used to this day. Tsar Nicholas II, his wife Alexandra, and their 5 children, known as the Romanovs, were brutally executed as a result of the Russian Revolution. But 15 months had passed since Nicholas had abdicated as emperor, and he had relatives all over Europe as a result of Queen Victoria's many children. Tragically, if the politics of Europe had been different, their deaths probably could have been avoided. The complications of alliances and World War I caused Nicholas's relations to not act, thereby leading to his death, and King George V, Nicholas's cousin, was among them. But his inaction was almost worse than any of his other cousins, because Great Britain initially agreed to grant the Romanovs asylum before withdrawing it due to concerns about alienating the new Russian government and the British people. In a move that would come to signify his reign, George chose duty over family. Another way King George V chose duty over family concerned his eldest son, King Edward VIII. Edward was incredibly popular as the Prince of Wales, but did not enjoy the same popularity among government officials or the royal family. As King George V's health began to falter, he expressed his thoughts to then Prime Minister Stanley Baldwin about what type of king his son Edward would be. According to biography, George revealed, "After I am dead, the boy will ruin himself in 12 months." Although the Prince of Wales enjoyed the privileges his station afforded him, he did not like the pressures being the future monarch put on him. In fact, he wrote in a letter to his sister, "I am so heartily sick of being cheered and yelled and shrieked at. I suppose the fact of the matter is that I'm quite the wrong person to be Prince of Wales."
Well, actually, that was before I became king.
Of course, one of the most notable scandals of the House of Windsor involves King Edward VIII and his abdication. The public story is that Edward abdicated his throne for love, after falling for American divorcee Wallis Simpson. Since the British monarch is also the head of the Church of England, at the time, Edward could not marry a twice-divorced woman. Initially, Edward proposed a compromise, where he would marry her, but she wouldn't receive the title of queen, and their children wouldn't be able to inherit the throne. But that suggestion was rejected by the British government. Coupled with his lack of discretion and his reported ties to the Nazis, Edward's abdication was probably met with relief by the British government. When George VI became king, he had to decide what to do with his brother, Edward VIII. Technically, abdication meant Edward would no longer be in the line of succession, nor supported by the government. George bestowed a dukedom on Edward, creating the position of Duke of Windsor for his brother. Edward and Wallis Simpson married in France, and made that country their home for the next 2 years. However, Edward and Wallis had Nazi sympathies, and the new husband met with Adolf Hitler in 1937. Once France fell to the Germans, Edward and Wallis escaped to Spain, but they weren't safe just yet. According to history, the Nazis concocted a scheme to kidnap Edward with the intention of returning him to the British throne as a puppet king. Unaware of the Nazi kidnapping plot, but conscious of Edward's pre-war Nazi sympathies, Prime Minister Winston Churchill hastily offered Edward the governorship of the Bahamas in the West Indies. On the other side of the world, Edward was effectively out of sight and out of mind. It's not a stretch at all to say that George VI had a difficult reign. He not only took over the monarchy in a non-traditional way, he then had to guide his country through World War II. He performed admirably, though, with his wife at his side, and stayed in Buckingham Palace in London when the city was bombed. But the war affected more than just England. Most notably, World War II saw a push for greater independence from other members of the British Empire. The path to independence for countries like India and Palestine had already been paved with the Balfour Declaration Declaration in 1926 and was further solidified after the end of World War II. India gained independence in 1947, and the London Declaration of 1949 saw the formation of the Commonwealth of Nations, effectively ending the British Empire after more than 200 years. The stresses of the war and the dissolution of the empire eventually led to the premature death of George. He smoked almost constantly as a result of his speech impediment and developed lung cancer. Although he underwent surgery to remove his left lung in 1951, his health eventually failed him, and he died at only 56 years old. Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip were married for over 73 years, but if her parents had their way, she would have married somebody else. Although Philip's royal pedigree was superlative, many parts of his life were concerning, most notably his German heritage. Not only was his maternal grandfather fully German, but his 4 sisters had also all married German aristocrats, reportedly with Nazi ties. Philip was also penniless, as his father had been exiled from Greece when the monarchy was overthrown, so some courtiers thought he just wanted Elizabeth's money. Although the princess wouldn't be dissuaded from marrying the man she loved, having a wedding in 1947 was not easy. She had to consider Britain's post-war economy and politics. For example, she couldn't invite Philip's sisters to the wedding due to their Nazi connections, and she had to pay for the silk to make her dress with ration coupons. As viewers of The Crown will know, Princess Margaret, Queen Elizabeth's younger sister, fell in love with Peter Townsend, an equerry to the royal family. Unfortunately, due to the Royal Marriages Act of 1772, the monarch had to approve of all marriages of royals in the line of succession under 25, and Margaret was 23 at the time. While Elizabeth didn't disapprove of her sister's intended, under pressure from the government and the Church of England, she did not consent to the marriage because of Townsend's divorce. Instead, a compromise was reached, allowing Margaret to marry Townsend and maintain her position in the royal family, but be removed from the line of succession. 3 days after the change to the act was proposed, however, Margaret decided not to go through with the marriage. Although she never said why she made that choice, she wrote in a letter to Prime Minister Anthony Eden, "It is only by seeing him that I feel I can properly decide whether I can marry him or not." Following the news that Peter Townsend was getting married to someone else, Princess Margaret accepted a proposal from photographer Anthony Armstrong Jones in 1960. When they tied the knot, it became the first royal wedding to be broadcast on television, attracting over 300 million viewers. As viewers of The Crown will be aware, on the outside they led a fabulous life of parties and social engagements, but privately their marriage was anything but perfect. Shortly after the birth of their second child, Armstrong Jones began a series of affairs, which led Margaret to engage in her own infidelity. Eventually, Margaret's relationship with Roddy Llewellyn, a landscape gardener who was 18 years younger than her, led the princess to go public with her marriage difficulties. Princess Margaret and Armstrong Jones separated in 1976 and divorced in 1978. According to biography, Margaret became the first member of the British royal family to get divorced in 400 years. Although Queen Elizabeth II is not involved directly with the politics of the empire, she has dipped her toe into the affairs of the Commonwealth a few times. Most notably, she has made her opinions known about Brexit and the Scottish referendum for independence. While she tries to maintain her neutrality, she has still come under fire from her detractors. In fact, Elizabeth has been the target of a few different assassination attempts throughout her almost 70-year reign. A few of these hadn't been made public when they occurred, so even more incidents might have happened that aren't yet known. The first publicly known attempt on the Queen's life happened when she was visiting Australia in 1970. Per biography, she was taking a train from Sydney to New South Wales when a log was placed on the tracks with the intention to derail it. Luckily for the Queen, who was traveling with Prince Philip, the driver was able to pull the brakes and stop in time. She was also the focus of 2 shootings that both took place in 1981, just months apart. One occurred in London and the other in New Zealand, and both were carried out by 17-year-old boys. Neither were true threats to the Queen, as the boy in London only fired blanks, and the one in New Zealand was too far away for his bullet to reach her. In 1947, Elizabeth II gave a speech on her 21st birthday, where she promised to devote her life to the royal family, and it seems she has been following that mantra ever since. In fact, even motherhood didn't take her away from her duties to the country. Prior to becoming queen, however, Elizabeth had already chosen to spend time with her husband over her children. Prince Philip had been given an assignment for the Royal Navy in Malta, causing Elizabeth to leave Prince Charles a mere 6 days before his first birthday to join Philip in the Mediterranean. Mediterranean, per Vanity Fair. She returned to London when she was pregnant with Princess Anne and gave birth to her there. Soon after Charles's second birthday, she returned to Malta to be with Philip again. But George VI's failing health required her to take on more of her father's duties, and Elizabeth and Philip soon left on a 35-day journey to North America, missing Charles's third birthday. Upon returning to Liverpool, Elizabeth joyously hugged her mother, while only giving her son a quick kiss on his head. According to Vanity Fair, a newsreel announcer said at the time, "Britain's heiress presumptive puts her duty first." That dedication to duty only extended when she became queen. Charles's official biographer, Jonathan Dimbleby, wrote in 1994, she was not indifferent so much as detached. It's no secret that Prince Charles had a tumultuous romantic life. According to Town & Country, the royal has allegedly been linked to dozens of women while he was single, during his marriage to Princess Diana and after. As the outlet noted, the royal family has denied all of this. Most notably, he was linked to a few nobles, like Lady Jane Wellesley, wealthy heiress Sabrina Guinness, actress Susan George, and even Barbra Streisand. None of the romances lasted long, however, except for his ongoing romance with Camilla Parker Bowles. Camilla and Charles reportedly first met in 1970, when she was still in a tumultuous relationship with Andrew Parker Bowles. Although Camilla reportedly wanted Charles to propose, he apparently wasn't ready to settle down and was unwilling to marry her before departing on his naval service. She was also considered to be unsuitable to marry Charles, so she accepted a proposal from Andrew while the prince was overseas. The marriage apparently devastated Charles, but he still maintained a friendship with her. According to the book Prince Charles by Sally Bedell Smith, Charles had begun an affair with Camilla in 1986. They kept their relationship private, but Diana confronted Camilla in 1989, reportedly telling her she knew what was going on between the pair. The affair became public in 1993, when a secretly recorded, explicit conversation between the two leaked to the press. Even though Prince Charles was in love with Camilla Parker Bowles, her marriage meant he had to find somebody new. He met Princess Diana in 1977, when she was just 16 years old. According to biographer Sarah Bradford's book, Diana, Charles spent some time with her over the next few years, but didn't propose to her until 1981, and only at the urging of his father. While their marriage was publicly happy, privately, Diana disliked the closeness of Charles and Camilla. Though Charles and Diana had many issues in their marriage, Diana claimed she knew their exact breaking point was in 1984. Diana reportedly told her biographer, Andrew Morton, "Charles and I were very, very close to each other the 6 weeks before Harry was born. Then, suddenly, as Harry was born, it just went bang, our marriage. The whole thing went down the drain." Rumors of infidelity on both sides of the marriage filled the pages of the tabloids thereafter, most notably Camillagate in 1993, where information about Charles's affair became public. Charles and Diana's separation was announced in December 1992.
Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded.
Charles admitted to his indiscretions in a 1994 documentary, and Diana confessed to her own affair in a bombshell 1995 interview with the BBC. That interview was reportedly the last straw for Queen Elizabeth, who then urged the embattled couple to divorce, which they did, making it official in August 1996. On August 31, 1997, Princess Diana died in a car crash while visiting Paris. In the days that followed, Queen Elizabeth II's apparent lack of empathy angered the public, who thought she should have immediately returned to London to publicly mourn. Additionally, she received backlash for not lowering the Union Jack over Buckingham Palace to half-mast in tribute to the late Princess of Wales. However, the real reason she didn't immediately address Diana's death was apparently much more compassionate. As Tina Brown, author of the Diana Chronicles, wrote, "Everyone rallied around the young princes. This was the first time in a long reign that the Queen was thinking about her family before her people. We should admire her for that. Her thoughts were with her grandchildren, and she wasn't thinking about how this would be played out in the media." The Queen also allowed the government to break protocol, letting the flag fly over Buckingham Palace at half-mast even though she wasn't there. The Queen also reportedly wouldn't permit Prince Charles to fly to Paris to retrieve Diana's body, but the prince allegedly fought hard to get permission to go, and the Queen eventually relented. As journalist Richard Kay told The Mirror, "This was a surprising and brave move. He was an ex-husband. He had no right to be there other than as the father of her sons. Charles fought harder for Diana than he had ever fought for her in her lifetime." Elizabeth eventually returned to London to observe the makeshift memorial for Diana, but her choice of privately handling the matter caused her popularity to decline for a few years. The divorce of Princess Margaret in 1978 seemed to indicate a fundamental shift in how the royal family and the British press viewed marriage and divorce. When Princess Anne's unhappy marriage to Captain Mark Phillips appeared irreparable, Queen Elizabeth II stepped in. According to People, Elizabeth was unofficially credited with quietly orchestrating the timing and tenor of the announcement to avoid the outcry that occurred when her sister, Princess Margaret, split from Lord Snowdon 13 years ago. The groundwork for the breakup was laid in April, when the palace confirmed that both Anne's and Mark's names had been linked to others. She also made Anne's new lover, Commander Timothy Lawrence, a member of the Royal Victorian Order, showing her support for her daughter's new relationship. The press also didn't seem to vilify Anne, which suggested that a new age was dawning. Anne and Mark had been separated for 2 years when they officially divorced in 1992. That same year, Anne married Timothy, and the two are still together as of this video's release. Mark, on the other hand, also remarried, but he and his new wife divorced due to infidelity on his part. As of summer 2021, he is reportedly in a relationship with the woman he cheated on his second wife with. 1992 was a busy year for the royal family, as it also saw the separation of Prince Andrew and his wife, Sarah Ferguson. Although the two wouldn't officially divorce until 1996, inappropriate pictures of Sarah with an American businessman caused her to lose her standing within the royal family. Unlike Anne and Mark, however, Andrew and Sarah seem to still enjoy a close friendship, and neither has remarried. Prince Edward, the youngest son of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, had a different experience receiving royal titles than his brothers. As the oldest son of the monarch, Prince Charles officially became the Duke of Cornwall. Meanwhile, Prince Andrew became the Duke of York upon his marriage to Sarah Ferguson. Even Prince William and Prince Harry were granted dukedoms upon their weddings. When Edward married, however, he was made an earl, breaking a long-held royal tradition. There is a specific reason why that was the case, and why his children are not styled prince and princess, even though the letters patent of 1917 indicated that all grandchildren of the male children of the monarch would automatically be styled HRH for His Royal Highness. Somewhat surprisingly, the Telegraph reported that Edward actually requested the title of Earl of Wessex, allegedly inspired by Colin Firth's character Lord Wessex from Shakespeare in Love. This will not last forever, though, as the Sunday Times confirmed that the Duke of Edinburgh title will be bestowed upon Edward following the death of the Queen, thus elevating him to the status of Duke. This arrangement was said to be made to honor Edward's closeness with his parents, his dedication to the Duke of Edinburgh award scheme, and the assistance he gave Philip later in life. In 2019, Prince Andrew caused yet another scandal for the royal family. The prince voluntarily stepped down from public duty as a royal after his long-term friendship with convicted sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein came to light. In 2011, the Wall Street Journal reported, "Recently, scrutiny has intensified about his ties to 58-year-old Jeffrey Epstein, a U.S. financier who, in a Florida court in 2008, pleaded guilty to a felony charge of solicitation of prostitution involving a minor. Mr. Epstein, who admitted guilt as part of a plea deal with prosecutors, was released last summer after serving about 13 months in jail. Following Epstein's release from prison, he and Andrew were photographed walking together in Central Park, and video emerged of Andrew spending time in Epstein's NYC house. Following Epstein's death, his court records were unsealed, and Andrew was one of the alleged abusers named. One of Andrew's alleged victims, Virginia Roberts Jeffrey, appeared on Today and called the prince an abuser.
I know what happened.
In answer to these allegations, Andrew sat down with Emily Maitlis of BBC News for an uncomfortable interview regarding his relationship with Epstein. Andrew denied all allegations that had been made against him. However, as Town and Country noted, Andrew did not explicitly express sympathy for Epstein's victims.
I know that I made the wrong judgment.
A few days after the interview aired, Andrew announced he was stepping away from royal duties and has rarely been seen in public since. It's worth noting, however, that Andrew refused to cooperate with United States officials in the Epstein investigation. The royal family is constantly scrutinized and in front of cameras, and that can be a tough environment in which to grow up. This relationship with the press was even more difficult for Prince William and Prince Harry, whose mother, Princess Diana, was killed in a car crash while trying to escape the paparazzi. William has gone on record describing just how much the media attention affected his mother. In the BBC documentary, Diana, 7 Days, William said, "I believe she cried more to do with the press intrusion than anything else in her life. She was subjected to treatment that, frankly, nowadays people would find utterly appalling. Growing up that way undoubtedly shaped the prince's relationship with the press. So much so that William asked them in 2007 to leave his then-girlfriend Kate Middleton alone." A spokesperson for the prince said at the time, via Metro, "What Prince William wants more than anything is for the paparazzi to stop harassing Kate." This laid the groundwork for an eventual lawsuit William and Kate filed against the French publication Closer, which published topless photos of the Duchess of Cambridge when they were on vacation in the south of France. After 5 years and a lengthy court process, the judge ruled in favor of the royal couple. As Vogue reported, the decision is not only a watershed moment for Kate and William, but the entire royal family and the press that chronicles it.
But we have been brought closer because of the circumstances as well. That's the thing.
It's no secret that Prince Harry has had his fair share of scandals throughout his years growing up, so much so that he was often called the party prince and is known to be much wilder than his brother, Prince William. Although Harry has had his fair share of partying incidents, including the time he was photographed naked in Las Vegas or when he was caught day drinking, there are a few more noteworthy moments of his that are also worth repeating. Harry's most notorious scandal happened when he dressed up as a Nazi soldier for a fancy dress party. Per the New York Times, the photos of him in the costume caused significant backlash, with even then Prime Minister Tony Blair commenting on it. Beyond that, Prince Charles also required Harry to spend a day at a drug rehabilitation facility after he allegedly caught his son smoking marijuana. Harry also got into a well-documented scuffle with photographers outside of a London club and has broken royal protocol by kissing his girlfriends in public. Harry's press was so bad for a time, the Daily Mail reported in 2004, amid concern about 19-year-old Harry's singular ability to attract an unhealthy degree of what courtiers call the wrong kind of publicity following his drink-fueled visits to nightclubs and bars, Charles has drafted in his news communications chief to act as his son's minder in Africa. Thankfully, it seems he's calmed down in recent years. It's no secret Prince Harry and Meghan Markle had a hard time navigating royal life after they got married. In fact, the situation reached a head when the Sussexes announced they were stepping back from senior royal duties and would live in North America instead. In 2021, after the decision to step back had been revisited and reaffirmed, Harry and Meghan granted a bombshell interview to Oprah Winfrey, during which they alleged multiple scandalous claims about their treatment within the royal family and by the institution that runs it.
There's a lot to work through there.
One of the most significant revelations, however, was Meghan and Harry's assertion that there was concern about what color skin their children would have. Harry clarified that the statement was said just to him and prior to his marriage to Meghan, but said the conversation was awkward. While they have refused to name who raised the concern, Oprah did say the Sussexes confirmed the comment did not come from the Queen nor from Prince Philip. While the royal family has been fairly silent on the issue, Prince William did negate the claims when asked about his brother's claims by a journalist.
We're very much not a racist family.
During her interview with Oprah, Meghan said that the optics were not the best, as their son, Archie Mountbatten Windsor, would be the first British senior royal of color. Not giving him a title seemed like a direct result of the reportedly racist conversations that had been taking place. If you or anyone you know has been a victim of sexual assault, help is available. Visit the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network website or contact RAIN's National Helpline at 1-800-656-HOPE 4673.